Red button means we're live. Some Casual Takes, episode 83, hosted by your boy, Stephen Pepper. Here to casually talk sports. This episode is brought to you by no one. A little late start today, had some things. It's finals week, so I'm prepping for that. This is going to be a longer episode, too, because we got stuff to talk about that we're going to get into in a second. A lot of football, some baseball, too, in the in-season tournament. What a W in-season tournament that was. But like I said, it's finals week. I know most of my listeners are in college, so I hope this bit longer episode than normal doesn't take away time for you guys studying. Maybe use this as like a study break, and you can hear me casually talk about sports. We got Eagles, Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, in-season tournament final. The GOAT James won. Ohtani went to the Dodgers over the weekend, and I also want to talk briefly about my Colts, but not about the Colts, but about something I found in that game. So let's first start with Eagles, Cowboys, Sunday Night Football last night. So the Philadelphia Eagles lost 33-13 to the Dallas Cowboys. And an excuse from Eagles fans is, oh, the Eagles were just tired. You know, they played the Bills, 49ers, and Cowboys in less than 21 days. Tired. That's the excuse. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have gotten away with this all season, their flaws. No, you're not tired. You're just not the same team as last year. I think everyone's kind of felt that they weren't the same team last year. Remember last podcast I talked about in a couple podcasts prior when I said they were the most concerning 3-0 start I've ever seen because they lost both their coordinators, offense, defense coming into the season. And then they kept playing. They didn't feel as dominant as they were. Something felt off. Hurts didn't look like the MVP. They weren't blowing teams out like last year, and they were just winning close games. But they started 10-1 exactly like they did last season. So it wasn't like as big as a conversation because they still had some quality wins, Chiefs, Bills, and they're 10-1 at the end of the day. That's the best record in football. I think the Eagles have gotten away with their flaws because they were just more talented than everyone they played. I mean, from quarterback, receiver, offensive line, coach, defensive line, they were just more talented than everybody. So they've been pulling off these close games by just out-talenting everyone, but you cannot do that against teams like 49ers and Dallas because they can match your talent. Losing to two of the three best teams in the NFL is not a bad thing if it was that simple. But it's always about how you lose, not just losing. And the Philadelphia Eagles going against two teams that can actually this time match their level of talent, they've lost back-to-back games by 20 points or more. This is very concerning. Clearly, it's clear that Philly does not have the same speed to compete with the talent of the 49ers and Cowboys. I mean, if that pass rush doesn't get home, that back end from linebacker, secondary, corner on, it gets torched every single game. They couldn't keep up with Debo. Debo put like 3 touchdowns on them in San Francisco. Ayuk, Kittle, Ferguson, the schemes of both the 49ers and Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, Pollard, CMC. The defensive speed of the Eagles just couldn't keep up with the offensive speeds of the Cowboys and 49ers, which has shown on the statistics of the defense. The Eagles now have the 11th worst total defense and the 5th worst scoring defense in the National Football League, which is a complete 180 from last year when they had the 2nd best total defense and the 8th best points last year. And I thought they drafted guys like Jalen Carter and such. Not only has this defense been alarming, but offensively, this team has no identity. I thought this was a power running team. Their biggest advantage last year, and still is if they can apply it, is that offensive line made up of a ton of Hall of Famers with quality backs and Jalen Hurts' running ability, push behind it. But the issue this year is they've been inconsistent whether they want to be a running team or a passing team. And especially in the last 3 games where they're either the 12th worst rushing offense in the last 3 games. When you got people out there with signs protesting Philly to run the ball more. And I thought going into the game, they talked about on the Sunday broadcast that Coach Sirianni was going to run the ball more, and he just didn't. Because why he didn't? Here's why. Now, the offense of the Eagles is becoming an A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith first team, and then running secondary, which for majority of the NFL, those are great receivers, and those would be the first options. But with that quarterback, that defense, if this passing game stalls and they're in a deficit, now they have to over-rely on that passing game again because they can't run the ball in that situation. And this is a run-first team. And since they have And this season, since they're having a more pass-oriented offense, they're relying a lot more on Jalen Hurts to throw. And I love Jalen Hurts, but I don't think he's that great of a thrower of football. I think he benefits more behind a run game and throwing, not when he has to, but when he can. And this season, we're seeing as his turnovers. He has 8 more turnovers at this part of the season than he did all last season, 14-6. Hey, listen, I'm not surprised about Philadelphia and where they're at. They're still 10-3, and they still have quality wins. And if they somehow made it to the Super Bowl and won the NFC, I wouldn't be surprised because they still have a talented roster. But I picked Dallas, if you guys remember, to win the division at the end of the season because I believe that the Dallas Cowboys were either at the same talent level or even could out-talent Philly in some certain levels to win this division. I said it. I thought this team was really good from Dak to CeeDee Lamb to arguably the best defense in the NFL as far as talent. I thought they had it, and it showed last night. Now, the Eagles, they really needed to beat Dallas if they didn't want to, like, this not like the sky's falling, but a win against Dallas would be like, okay, we lost to San Francisco, but we bounced back and beat a division rival on the road, and now we can at least be the second best team in the NFC. Now they're the third best team in the NFC if you ask people. Again, the Eagles are still fine. I think they can still somehow win the NFC because they have the talent. They just need some layup games coming up. They did go through a gauntlet. It's not because they're tired. It's just because they finally played some really, really good teams and teams that can actually match their talent. They got some layup games coming up. Cardinals, Giants. They need those games so they can have an easier game, not have to be overly pass reliant, and can start finally establishing the run. And I'm not saying that because I'm a DeAndre Swift fantasy owner, but I think this team benefits more. It opens up the passing lanes for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith a lot more if you can bring the safeties down because you're running all over the place with Hurts. I know he's a bit banged up, but DeAndre Swift and all the guys you got behind him. But the Eagles, this is not the same team as last year. 10-3, they're fine, but this defense has regressed. And offensively, I have no idea what the Philadelphia Eagles' offensive identity is. We all knew what it was last year, but now it feels inconsistent and depends on the game. Okay, the game before then, the 4:05 slot was Bills Chiefs, and this was another huge one. And this is like the 5th time they played since 2021, and every single time it's just a classic. And yet again, yesterday, Chiefs Bills, another dramatic fashion finish. This time, the Chiefs are the one on the other end complaining after the game out of rule. So Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Reid, the Chiefs, they were clearly upset because of what happened. If you guys saw, the Chiefs were driving to go either, take the go-ahead score. And they looked like it because Mahomes threw to Travis Kelce. Kelce was getting brought down the laterals to Kadarius Toney, and Toney takes it in for the go-ahead score. But there was a flag on the play. Toney was offensive offsides. And the Chiefs were just so upset. I mean, they were furious. It was like red tomatoes in the face on the sideline. Here's Mahomes. Mahomes had various amount of quotes, but one to Josh Allen that stuck out to me. He was so sore of the loss. He went up to Josh Allen and said, yo, Josh Allen, good game. He says, worst bleeping call I've ever seen. Then Andy Reid after the game says, a bit embarrassing in the NFL for that to take place. A bit embarrassing. You know what was embarrassing? The complaining was embarrassing. Like that, I cringed to the Chiefs because the call was correct. The call was correct. They were doing all these tricks like, oh my, like the ref has to make sure that Toney is on. No, it's the receiver responsibility. I played receiver when I was in middle school. It's the receiver. You can ask any all-pro receiver. The receiver's responsibility is to line up, not offsides, thumbs up to the ref, and make sure that he's okay. Toney did not do that. He's been in the league for a couple of years. He's played receiver his whole life. That's on him. That was the correct call. I get it's a rare call, but it was the correct call. And I think the Chiefs, like Mahomes was getting in the face of the ref. He was hot and all this press conference stuff. That was just all embarrassing because it was the correct call. And I think the Chiefs, the reason why they're so hot today and especially last night is because the season's been so frustrating. They're clearly taking their energy out of this frustrating season. They've dropped 3 of their last 4. And it just doesn't feel like the season is as good as it was last year and the prior years in this Chiefs dynasty. Do you think if the Chiefs were, 10-1, 9-2, weren't dropping 3 of their last 4, would they be as mad today if they had a better record, if the season was going smoother, if the receivers could catch passes? No. But the fact is the offense Last 6 games, Mahomes, Reed, offensive guys, your offense has been embarrassing. I used to be so used to this offense putting up 30 a game. Last 6 games, 19, 31, but 17, 14, 9, 17 points. Last 6 games. The offense is embarrassing. You're going to complain to the refs. How about you complain to Patrick Mahomes for taking a large contract? Now, Mahomes deserves that large contract. Best player in the freaking sport. But what had that large contract has done in the salary cap league, it's funny how we're going to talk about money, we're going to talk about it later. In a salary cap league is, there's a pot of money that you can divide it to. And if Mahomes is taking up so much of that money, you can't divide bigger slices to other areas. There's going to have to be some sacrifices financially. And they did that. They traded Tyreek Hill instead of paying him the money that he wanted. As a result, it's forced them to go younger through the draft to get receivers to replace Hill and give Mahomes some weapons. And these young receivers are not that good. I mean, Rashid Rice is coming around, but Sky Moore's a whiff. You got Valdez Scanlon and these other combination of guys and Kadarius Toney. And it's caused receiver problems because of Mahomes' large contract. And playing to Mahomes, I mean, the receivers got the most drops in the league. These receivers, if they're open to catch a ball, which is very rare because they just struggle against man. And what teams are doing now, it's becoming so easy to game plan around this offense, which a couple years ago, this was the hardest offense to game plan around. Where receivers, they play man, they double team Travis Kelce, and you're just praying that Rice or Toney could somehow, Watson could somehow get open. If they do get open, they can catch the ball. And the receiver problem, thanks to Mahomes' contract, force them to go younger through the draft and get low-level receivers via trade, like whoever they just McCole Hartman, who just doesn't play. It forced them to trade for Toney last year. I know Toney won a Super Bowl with them, and I think he caught a pass in the Super Bowl too. Toney's been done more harm than good for the Chiefs since he's been here. They got him out of desperation because they didn't have a wide receiver. He's done more harm than good, let's be honest. I mean, we can go all the way back to the writing was on the wall in week 1 when he dropped a couple, I think 3 crucial passes against the Lions. One of them went through his hands and was a pick 6, ultimately cost him the game. Toney also had a sideline drop. Not only, it's just so fitting that was Toney who got the offensive offsides. It's just so fitting that it's anyone. It wasn't anyone but Toney. And then he also had a sideline drop throughout the game. You could complain to the refs all you want. Refs this, refs that. It was the correct call. It was so embarrassing to see the face of the league, the reigning champions, cry on the sidelines, red hot, steaming about a correct call. I know they've had some ref problems, throughout the season. Last game against Green Bay, they were more outraged about this call than the pass interference against Green Bay. That was blatant. But they were more pissed about this call. Made no sense. This is the right call. And you want to say this about, the ref should have helped him out. The ref should have told him to get back. That's a grown man who's been playing receiver his whole life. I wonder why he made the call. See, the reason why you have to go get these young receivers because you could no longer pay Tyreek Hill, which forced you to get young guys like Toney and Toney. There's a reason why New York gave up on him in a year. He's young, not the brightest guy, and he made a mistake. And the contract, complained to the GM who gave you $1 billion. Complained to the GM who didn't want to understand at the deadline that you guys had a wide receiver problem. Instead, you traded for McCole Hartman. Complain about that instead of complaining to the league. Okay, in-season tournament. Not going to act surprised. Knew the Lakers were going to win. We had a Mickey Mouse group stage play. Knew we owned the Suns. Then we got the Pelicans instead of the Kings. We were going to crush them. They're nowhere close to us. Then we played the Pacers, not the Bucks. Knew we were going to beat them. They're not big enough. They're not a good enough defensive team. Pause. So Lakers won the tournament. I'm hype. And I'm so hyped because this is why I'm so hyped. I'm not surprised, but why I'm so hyped is because it's different from last season. Remember where we were last season? Started the league 2-10, worst start 3-point shooting wise in NBA history. The Lakers were in such a bad spot to start last season, and now they're well above 500, one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and just won the in-season tournament. But what hasn't changed is that the Lakers are still in trade rumors. That hasn't changed. So per The Athletic today, the Lakers are a top suitor for Chicago Bulls star Zach LaVine. I wouldn't touch Zach LaVine with like a 10-foot pole. I don't want to see any other jersey swaps. Attention to Pelinka. I do not want to see any jersey swaps or mock trades with any big name players going forward in the Lakers uniform. This is the team. I think the LeBron legacy talks that came from winning the tournament have distracted people from the main takeaway of the tournament, which is that the Lakers actually have a legit championship squad. I mean, this LaVine rumors, DeRozan, the only way we can get a player like this is if we blow up the depth, which is also going to blow up the defense. And if we have any case study of what that can do to a team, just go back 2 years ago to Lakers when they got Russell Westbrook. They broke up the championship bubble roster after freaking out to his son's loss the following year. For Russell Westbrook, gave up the depth and defense to make room for a star who, declining athletically, mouth to feed, and doesn't play any defense. But I think now the Lakers have recovered back. The Lakers from that deadline last year to today have recovered, I think, to being back to a bubble level roster. And which is Anthony Davis and LeBron James playing at high levels is all you need. I mean, when you look at that bubble roster, that disparity between LeBron and AD and that third player being like Kyle Kuzma is large, but they were still able to win the championship. Why? Because they were deep enough from Kuzma on to see the KCP, Caruso. They all played defense. They all fit their role. And LeBron and AD were so great. And we're seeing it this season. But now, LeBron AD with D'Lo and Reeves is enough. And then everyone else catch and shoot in defense. The defense is finally healthy. The Lakers roster is filled with deep with long wings who can all play defense. 7th best defensive rating, and it's only going to improve because they're getting healthier. No opponent in the last 4 games has scored more than 110 points against the Lakers defense. The Pacers offense absolutely locked it up. That's the best offense in the NBA, by the way. And in the in-season tournament, they faced Devin Booker, B.I., Zion, Halliburton, all locked them up with their length and different actions they can throw against them. Those are some of the best offensive players in the game. I know Kevin Durant still had a game. I mean, you can't really guard Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had a game against us. Kevin Durant's 7 foot with a handle. Can't really do much against Kevin Durant. But Halliburton got most of his points and assists kind of in the fourth quarter, kind of whenever it's tired, the game's over. Devin Booker locked him up, forced him to have so many turnovers. B.I. Zion were quiet the whole game. I think B.I. had like 9 points. I mean, what a luxury it is for the Lakers. This is what the Lakers would give up for Zach LaVine. This luxury of Cam Reddish is in foul trouble against the Pacers. Defense doesn't miss a beat because all they have to do is sub in Vanderbilt. They would have to give that luxury up if they want to get a Zach LaVine. And Zach LaVine also has injury issues, and he's a mouth to feed. Think about how easy the rotation is. People sometimes criticize Darvin Ham's rotations. Think about how hard the rotation is going to be when you have to throw in an ego like an all-star of Zach LaVine. I think Darvin Ham's getting better at handling the rotation for the Lakers because it's not hard to limit the minutes of a Reeves or a D'Angelo Russell. But when we saw how difficult it was to manage an ego in the minutes of a Russell Westbrook, and I think it'll be the same thing for an all-star like Zach LaVine. I think the Lakers are in a really good spot. I wouldn't trade any of this. I wouldn't touch Zach LaVine with the pull. I think what they got on, everyone today is talking about, oh, LeBron, does this make him the GOAT? Is this a real championship or not? Hey, listen, this was a competitive in-season tournament. This counts. Everyone wanted it. Just because LeBron won doesn't mean this doesn't count. But I think the main takeaway shouldn't be LeBron legacy talks. It should be the fact that the Lakers have a legit championship squad. And I think they should remove themselves from any rumors, call up Shams, call up all the insiders, take the Lakers' name off of these talks. I mean, they can make a trade at the deadline if it's for like a smaller level role player. If we get decimated, of course, if we get decimated and the season goes south, then we can revisit this conversation. But the pace they're playing right now, they started 2-10 last season. I think they're 14-9 today, well above 500 with an in-season tournament championship. You put that Lakers team from the start of last season in this in-season tournament game, they don't even make it at a group play. And they just won the in-season tournament. Because I think they actually today have a legit championship squad led by LeBron and AD at a high level, Reeves and D'Lo. Those can be the remaining main creators, everyone else catch and shoot, play defense, and it's paying off. You go get a Zach LaVine, injuries, decline athletically, ego in the minutes, doesn't play defense. You're going to take down this team, and we're going to go right back to. I think Zach LaVine's a better fit than Russell Westbrook, so we wouldn't be as bad as we were with Russell Westbrook, but we wouldn't be as good today. I know it sounds funny. You add a guy like Zach LaVine, an all-star, to a roster, the Lakers wouldn't be as good. Pelinka, don't do it. Stop reporting the Lakers to get these guys. Okay, I want to talk about baseball for a second. I don't talk about baseball a lot here on the show, but Shohei Ohtani over the weekend signed a 10-year, $700 million contract with the Dodgers. We all knew this was coming. You guys know over the summer I was talking about how he's going to go to the Dodgers and the Angels are delusional for not trading him. What do they want? 30 more home games to sell with Ohtani? Okay, no one goes to your games anyways, dude. Now no one's going to go to your games. We all knew he was going to go to the Dodgers. That's not the point. My point is, I think this contract is everything wrong with baseball. That big markets completely run the sport. Small markets, you stand no chance in this sport because there is zero competitive balance infrastructure in Major League Baseball. No salary cap, which if you're a rich owner in a big city with a team that generates a lot of revenue, the world is your oyster. But if you're a small market team with not so rich owner, family run, fans don't go to your games, you don't have a lot of money, you can't afford to play like this. I'm a Reds fan. Like, the thought of us getting Ohtani was so unlikely. Like, I couldn't even process a dream about it. Like, Ohtani, the Reds would have bankrupted that team. Imagine, like, the Reds books if they had Shohei Ohtani in that contract. Couldn't handle it. I like, big cities have won everything in my lifetime. I'm talking like the Giants, Yankees, Dodgers. I mean, every time there's a big name guy on the open market, like Stanton or Bryce Harper, it's always the same dang team's favor to get these guys. Why? Because they actually have the funds to do so. Small market couldn't even dream about it. Like, if you're a small market, if a big name hit, like, you're not even on the board. You got plus like $1 billion odds to sign a big name player. Now, signing big bats doesn't guarantee a World Series, but what it does, it quadruples at least the odds of your team over another club that's been waiting decades for a generational farm system. Like, it took the D-backs forever to be this relevant again and go to a World Series, which is cool for the D-backs, but the only way they got there is because they caught lightning in the bottle with a great farm system. Who do they lose to? Oh, I don't know. A Rangers team in one of the biggest states of the country who spent $500 million in the prior offseason for 2 players. The Phillies. The Phillies missed the playoffs for about a decade of my lifetime after being a World Series team. How will they get back to that? Oh, I don't know. Sign like $1 billion worth of contracts to Bryce Harper, Schwarber, and Trey Turner. That's how you do it. It's the big markets. Of course, small market teams with the farm system, they can get, like signing big bats doesn't guarantee a World Series. Like, just go out to the Mets. And I've seen small market teams in my lifetime, like the Nationals, with cheap players, no big name free agents, guys all came up in their system. But that team can't last forever too, which is also an issue. The Nationals didn't last forever because they couldn't pay those guys. And some of the guys they did pay, it was the wrong guys they paid. But these small market teams aren't like the Yankees and can just absorb all these big contracts and have a decades long worth of dominance with star players. As soon as like the Pirates, if they have a star in their system, he's going to the Dodgers. He's going to the Yankees. It's over. The Reds, like, as soon as like Elly De La Cruz becomes the biggest name in baseball, he's going to the Dodgers. It's over. It's over for the Reds. See ya. Like, Reds fans better, we better get him cheap now, or else if we don't sign him, and it's time to, pay him, it's over. This is why the NFL is better, in my opinion, because they got these infrastructures built up within, salary cap. Everyone's working with similar money. Markets don't drive the sport. This is why I always love the NFL over MLB. It's because rebuilding, you can cheat a rebuild in MLB by just signing a bunch of guys at top dollar if you're a big market. Can't cheat dude, if you're bad in your small market, you're bad for like 15 years. You are bad unless you hit unless you strike lightning in a bottle with a generational farm system, if you're a small market team and you're bad, you're going to be bad for 15 years. And you could still be bad for 15 plus years in an NFL team, but you have to make massive mistakes in the NFL draft and free agency. But if you make the right moves in free agency, if you hit the right draft picks, boom, you're competing. Like the Browns could easily compete with the Chargers or the Rams, although those are richer owners in a bigger market because of the NFL infrastructure. But at MLB, the Dodgers and the Guardians competing with each other, I'll never ever see that. And it's because of contracts like this. Now, this isn't one of those, oh, league's over, league's ruined, Dodgers World Series incoming. It's not one of those, although they should be the favorite. I think they are the odds-on favorite. It's not one of those. It's not one of those league ruin things. I just don't like the infrastructure of how a big-name star is automatically going to go to a top team, which is now allowing all these top big market teams. Whenever, no matter how good or bad they are, they can always get a player like this. Whereas a small market team, of course, Dodgers, Yankees, they got to bank on a good farm system because a big back doesn't guarantee a World Series. But if you're a guy like a Reds fan, the only thing you can do is bank on a good farm system. And that farm system has to be really, really good. Whereas like a Dodgers or Yankees, they don't need an entire farm system to be elite. They just need like one or two good farm guys to go throw a couple pitchers, be a star pitcher or whatever, because they can sign everybody else. But for the Reds, they need their whole team to come out of their farm, just like the Nationals. All right, let's talk about my Colts and the Bengals before we wrap up today. So the Colts with Jake Brown, the Bengals with Jake Browning beat my Colts. A little pissed about it. You guys know how I feel about the Colts. Whenever we lose, it's devastating because we're playoff committed now. And we have a terrible, terrible defense that I wish if we would have just tanked earlier in the season. I know you don't take in the NFL, but if we just would have lost earlier and just had a better draft pick, we can have a pretty good defense next year, or at least have more promising defensive players at cornerstone. But the Bengals now have back-to-back quality wins with Jake Browning. When we all kind of thought, I think everyone and their moms who has a show after Joe Burrow got hurt against Baltimore said the Bengals season was over. Although I don't think the Bengals I think their Super Bowl window is over. But as far as a playoff competitive season, it's not. Why is that? It's because I think what week 14 has foreshadowed is the inevitable extinction of defensive head coaches in football. Just open the NFL app and look at the playoff standings right now. All but two of the current AFC playoff teams have offensive head coaches. And then plus the Bengals and Broncos are also tied for 7th. They have offensive head coaches. Think about those teams for a second. And it's even better in the NFC. 6 of the 7 NFC playoff teams have offensive head coaches. And then the Rams and Falcons in the hunt right outside of there with offensive head coaches. This isn't a coincidence. Look at the bottom of the league. Scroll down the app. Mostly defensive head coaches. In a league only moving more in favor of offense, wouldn't you want an offensive head coach? I mean, defensive head coaches, they can't get offense right. They don't understand offense. That's not their expertise. And we're in a league today where it's all about offensive play calling, schemes, and X's and O's in an offense-favored league. Defensive head coaches, they have no control over, let's face it, the most important part of an NFL team, the offense. I mean, when the offense has the ball, what's the point of them having a head? They got their hands in the pockets. They don't got a play sheet out. What's the point of having a headset on? And defensive head coaches, there's only a certain amount of motivational speeches like Tomlin and defensive head coaches can give to their offense, because other than like a motivational speech, what can a defensive head coach do to an offense? Wouldn't you want your head coach knowledgeable about the most important part of a team? Defensive head coaches, this is the issue with them. Defensive head coaches can be fine, but they need a star quarterback. They're so reliant on their quarterback, whereas an offensive head coach, they don't necessarily need to be reliant on a scheme. They don't necessarily need to be reliant on a quarterback. Of course, quarterbacks matter, but they're more reliant on a scheme and weapons. So this creates a problem. So if a quarterback goes down for a defensive head coach, either the game is unwinnable or the season's just over. But pull up that standings again and look at all those teams in the playoff picture. A lot of teams are on backup quarterbacks. They have offensive head coaches because they're not relying on the quarterback. No matter what quarterback, you throw a competent quarterback in there, offensive head coaches, Browns, Bengals with Jake Browning. Think about Josh Dobbs, Kirk Cousins somehow winning games over there in the Vikings. Pull up the standings again. I mean, there's so many teams, Browns, all that. Defensive head coach, Seattle, New England, Pittsburgh. Go to a backup quarterback, game's over. Game's over. But an offensive head coach, Bengals, Browns, like the Colts. I'm a Colts fan. We have a top 10 scoring offense in the league. We've had Gardner Minshew for like 7 games. We don't have like a top 10 talented offense. We don't have, and Gardner Minshew's not even playing elite. But we're still a top 10 scoring offense because of Shane Steichen's scheme. What scheme do these defensive head coaches have? They're over, no offense, like if the Bills, think about the Bills and the Bengals for a second. Think about the Bills and the Bengals. If Josh Allen were to have a similar injury to Joe Burrow and be out for the season, even with Stephon Diggs, even with a good enough defense, even with some good offensive pieces, Bills season's over. They're one of the worst teams in the AFC. But with the Bengals, what we're seeing is, even with Joe Burrow being out for the season, Jake Browning, the quarterback, we all didn't think that was that good, wasn't that great out of Washington, below average backup. He goes in there with those receivers, good enough defense. He has 2 back-to-back quality wins. Beat the Jags, beat Trevor Lawrence. There's a difference. Browns have been through 5 different quarterbacks, it feels like, and they're somehow in the playoff chase winning games. Whereas Pittsburgh, they lose Kenny Pickett, who isn't even that good. They lose Kenny Pickett. Defense can't save you every game. It's over. Jets lose Aaron Rodgers. It's over. Defensive coach, defense culture, and a league that's pivoting more to offense. Offensive head coaches rule the sport. Look at the top teams, NFC, Eagles, Lions. Now, not every single offensive head coach is the offensive play caller, but in a league catered more to offense, you want your head coach, your guy in control of making decisions, of being the leader of your staff, to be offensive oriented. I'm telling you, when these coaching hires, come up, Sean McVay on a Rams team that's been riddled with injuries, defense isn't that good, only has Aaron Donald, they're about to make the playoffs. Kirk Cousins' Achilles, about to make the playoffs. I'm telling you, notice these hirings coming up. It's going to be all offensive head coaches. The people that everyone wants, all offensive head coaches. The teams that are struggling right now, the teams are probably going to look off the head coach. Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick, Ron Rivera, defensive head coaches. But the top guys for coaches for next season, Ben Johnson and so on, offensive coordinators to become offensive head coaches. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Some Casual Takes, episode 83. Make sure you get back to your exams now after this episode's over. Follow everything on social media. Stay updated. Everything related to the show. Some Casual Takes in the handle. Until next show, it's probably going to be Friday. But until then, see you.